Most people drive through Brownsville, a small town in Oregon, without noticing a wisteria vine along the road or a few hand-woven baskets in a museum. At first glance, they seem ordinary, but they're not. They tell the story of a woman called the last of the Calapouya. Her name was Eliza Young. This is how she remembered her life. I, the last. My father gone. My mother gone. My children. All the Calapouya gone. Today, Brownsville is known as a filming location for the 1986 film Stand By Me. But long before the cameras arrived, this was Eliza Young's home. Over the years, stories about her grew. Some claimed she was the last of her people. Others said she was more than 100 years old. But those stories are not quite true. Her story runs deeper, rooted in the land she knew and the life she lived here. For thousands of years, the Calapouya used fire to shape the valley. It cleared undergrowth and small shrubs, enriched the soil, and kept the land open for wildlife. This was the world Eliza Young was born into, a place shaped over generations by the people who lived here. Then settlers arrived and everything began to change. Here you'll find hidden stories of the Willamette Valley, its people, its places, and its history. If you find this worthwhile, please subscribe and like this video. Joining the channel helps support future work, and your comments help guide what comes next. By the early 1850s, settlers had claimed the valley and ended the seasonal burns. Camas, once plentiful and vital to life here, began to vanish. Shrubs and young trees crept over the open prairies. Years later, Eliza Young recalled that she could scarcely recognize the land she had known as a child. Without fire, the valley started to unravel. Grasshoppers swarmed and devoured the crops. Wildlife disappeared from some areas and surged uncontrollably in others. The carefully tended world of her childhood was slipping away. And it was not only the land that was changing. Disease followed. Malaria, measles, and influenza swept through the valley, devastating her people. In just a few years, their numbers fell from thousands to a few hundred. Eliza Young was orphaned as a child. The people she grew up with were forced onto the Grand Ronde Reservation. She watched her people vanish as the valley changed, but she remained in a world that was slipping away. Eliza Young had lost much. Her parents, her first husband, who was abusive, her second husband, who spent time in prison and later died in a brawl, and her two children, who died of tuberculosis, along with many of the people she grew up with. She outlived nearly everyone she had known, and still, she had to go on. She made her living the only ways she could: cooking, washing clothes, selling berries, weaving baskets, and taking small jobs from families in Brownsville. Some families helped her in return, giving her a small house to live in and support to survive. Through it all, she kept weaving baskets carrying the knowledge of her people in her hands. Each basket was a memory of a land and life that was disappearing. As her sight faded, she did not stop weaving baskets. She worked by memory, by touch, by what her hands had learned over a lifetime. Some of her work still exists today, preserved in museums across Oregon. People remembered her that way. One story tells of Eliza in a Brownsville store, arguing for a piece of cloth. Her gown was worn through. The clerk urged her to buy a new one, but Eliza refused. She only had enough money for a small piece of fabric. She insisted on just enough to mend what she had, and in the end, she got exactly what she came for. All the while, beneath her daily work and careful labor, she carried a quiet sorrow that never left her. After her children died, Eliza spent long hours at the cemetery, watching over their graves. She returned again and again, making sure they were not disturbed. A carved wooden statue of Eliza Young stands there, continuing her watch over the graves she loved. Locals remembered her as small but determined, carefully tending her work, insisting on what she needed, making do with what she had. Her mind was sharp, her memory strong. But as for her age, she did not know. You know, people these days, me poor people, no school, no nothing. I don't know. In Brownsville, people knew her. Some remembered her strength. Others, only the stories told about her. One such story was about the wisteria growing in front of the historic Moyer house. The vine winds alongside a linden tree, planted around 1881 by John and Elizabeth Moyer. Its thick trunk, some say, was braided by Eliza herself. Eliza Young rests in the Brownsville Pioneer Cemetery. She was likely in her 80s when she passed in 1922, not over 100 as newspapers claimed, and she was not the last of the Calapouya. Her life is remembered, not for being the last, but for enduring. Next time you drive through Brownsville or watch Stand By Me, think of Eliza Young. She lived here in the heart of the Willamette Valley, working with her hands, watching the land, and carrying the memory of a people who had tended it for generations. Though the world around her changed, she left traces of a people who were never truly gone. Her story reminds us that history is not only in books, but also in quiet places, and in the stories that live on long after the people themselves are gone.